We are all about the stats for today's show. Which stats will define Michigan State football season? And also, what stats from last year could benefit our Spartans in 2025?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you all so much for ending your week with us here at Locked On Spartans and keeping us your first listen every single day right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below your favorite or, most concerning stat for Michigan State, because we're going to get a full menu of these flavors when it comes to the numbers department. Now, it isn't just me spewing off a bunch of stats, analytics. No. We get one of the greatest accounts out there when it comes to stats, Parker Fleming. He runs a Twitter account called Stats of War. And guys, I know analytics can be scary. I know that. Hey, even yours truly can struggle with some numbers. I don't really entirely know what every single stat out there really means, but Parker, not only does he come with a lot of numbers, he came with great explanations, and it was just so simple that, even a third grade math mind like myself could follow along just great. So, hey, let's get into our chat with Parker Fleming about Michigan State football last season, this upcoming season, all things MSU and numbers right now. Do this gentleman's stats and numbers sometimes confuse me? Yes. But all the time, is he a great follow on Twitter at Stats of War? I believe so, guys. It's Parker Fleming, one of the greatest follows out there when it comes to college football. And Parker, how on earth are we doing as we are about to wrap up July and head into what will be the college football months? Are we doing okay?
Man, I'm excited. Football is a little closer every day and just around the corner now. We've got the media days, the kickoffs, they've all happened, and dudes are about to line up and actually put on pads and start practicing. So I'm excited, man.
You can just feel it in the air. It's amazing. And look, we're going to get into, all the numbers that you do on Twitter, just outstanding stats. I mean, it's right there in your name, Stats of War on Twitter. But look, this could be either taken statistically, it could just be taken off the field. What is your thought about Jonathan Smith? Are you a believer in Mr. Smith? Because this is a question I'd love to ask the national audience, just get our Michigan State bias out of the picture. As someone that has been following him, maybe even back all the way at the Oregon State days, what are your thoughts for his tenure here at Michigan State?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like Jonathan Smith a lot. I think, interesting hire with Michigan State and how he's able to, bring what he did at Oregon State over. I think Oregon State, the big kind of value proposition that he had when he was there in those two solid seasons where they went 10-3 and then 8-4, 8-5, but he didn't coach a ball game, was you just saw order, right? You just saw that they had a cohesive identity, which is hard in college football. He found the personnel to execute that cohesive identity, and he played above the level of his talent. And I think that's the vision for a school like Michigan State. It's not a referendum on them historically or where they where they could be. But right now, what they need to do is have this strong sense of identity, know what they're good at, and become excellent at that as they kind of raise the floor and get out of the mire here a little bit. So I think he's a good hire. I think obviously went and got a blue chip and Aidan Chiles that a lot of people are high on, developmental prospect. But I think Jonathan Smith's kind of rules-based offense really, really lends itself to that. And we saw some flashes there. So I'm a believer in Jonathan Smith. I think he came into just an absolutely terrible situation at Oregon State, raised them to levels that no one else had. And so the proof of concept is absolutely there for him.
It's interesting that you say identity, because that could be, a term that is just used for, that's just a lazy cliche that you guys are throwing out there. But there's actually something analytical to it, in your opinion. You can attribute some actual figures to an identity of a team.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about one way to do this is a measure of style. I like to think a lot about rush rate over expected. So not just what was your run pass mix, but given the down distance and yard line. And for the uninitiated, that's hey, on 3rd and 1, teams are going to run a lot, right? So I don't necessarily care that you run on 3rd and 1. I care, when the situation's open, how much are you rushing or passing relative to how much everyone else is in those situations. Michigan State's offense last season was very, very run heavy. They were 7.7 percentage points more than average on rush rate over expected. That was in the 70s or 80s, depending on some adjustments there. And so very, very run heavy. And they were good. Like their EPA per rush was top 50. It was definitely the better side of their offense. Like they obviously want to draw up the explosives with the pass game to complement the run game, but knowing what you're good at, like, hey, we want to be a physical team that runs the ball efficiently and opens up those explosives is absolutely, the numbers kind of bear that out. And the style that they're trying to play aligns with what we know of Jonathan Smith and aligns with what they were good at last year.
That's fascinating to me because, you just look at the basic stats, just my kind of stats, Parker, the ones that are just easy for a third grader to follow. It's great. Like the yards per carry. Wasn't great shakes here last year. And I got to say, like, I'm a little surprised to hear that, they were actually, better than most at their expected rush rate. So right there, just already dropping knowledge bombs on us right out of the chute, Parker. I love it. I did see this, though. This was the other day or the other week. I have no more concept of time anymore. I don't know when anything has ever happened, but you did tweet this out. It was a graphic of FBS teams returning their head coach, their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and their quarterback, returning all four of those key components of a football team. Not a lot of teams out there, specifically in the Big Ten. Michigan State just one of 3 Big Ten teams returning all 4 of those, Illinois and Rutgers being the other 2. How important is that? I know that's a very broad question, but is that something that we could look at and say with reason, hey, that's a huge benefit to Michigan State, or is it just kind of more like a trivial fun fact?
Yeah, so one, I will note, I do think I need to update this. I believe Rob Smith at Rutgers was not technically the DC last year. He was an analyst and moved over. So they are, so that brings us down to 2 in the Big Ten.
Okay.
Does it matter? I don't know. It used to matter a lot, right? It used to be so cohesive, but I think there's a couple things you look at. One, a team like Ohio State, who lost their defensive coordinator to Penn State, like they're going to be fine, right? Like that doesn't actually matter necessarily in terms of what they're going to do. But I think in the middle, the developmental kind of programs, and that's where Michigan State is right now, like they're not going to be a playoff team 4 years in a row, right? They're not going to be competing at the top. Their chance with Jonathan Smith is let's every 2 to 3 years be really, really competitive, and then we'll retool, and then we'll be really competitive, and then we'll retool. So I think it is really important for them. The Illinois, the Arizona States, Florida to some extent is that way right now. TCU is like that, where the idea is we're not taking this random draw of talent every year. We're getting our guys in and developing them up in the system. So it does speak to Michigan State being kind of on that on-ramp of development. The returns are back and forth because obviously there's like endogenous changes. Some teams upgrade their quarterback through the portal, and so you lose continuity, but you upgrade in talent. Some teams just can't have a bad situation and can't get anyone better, right? And so I think you have to take it with a grain of salt. But in Michigan State's specific context and what they're trying to do and kind of the long-term build that Jonathan Smith is undergoing now, like certainly a positive sign that he feels Lindgren and Rossi are both good and can enact his vision. And then you've got Chiles as this project to keep building up there. So I think it's certainly a positive. It's not necessarily a positive for every team, but for them, I think it certainly is.
More to come, guys, but first, a word for our friends over at DripDrop. That's right. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, lawn days on campus, staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that is where DripDrop comes in. Now, when I'm on top of my hydration, I just notice everything works better, guys. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy, and that is why I've been loving DripDrop. Now, DripDrop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of the leading sports drink. Guys, hey, just last night, it was a long day of parenting. I'm actually not even feeling too great right now, a little under the weather if you can't hear it, so you know that your boy needed some fluids before tackling the only Detroit Zoo. So I juiced up my water bottle with cherry limeade, zero sugar DripDrop, and it kept me powering the entire day there. Guys, these are awesome for after workouts on the golf course. Just even at home, I absolutely love DripDrop, not just because how your body feels afterwards, but guys, this is one of the best tasting electrolytes that you could possibly have out there. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Because that's like the catch-22 that it's been here when I've said this stat, and that is that, hey, only 3 teams that you're facing this year for Michigan State is returning their starting quarterback from last year. But you said like that sounds great. Like I fell in love with it when I just, discovered it as I'm going through the schedule. But then, yeah, okay, well, UCLA, they got Nico out of the portal. Like Michigan, they got this, 6-star superstar Bryce Underwood at quarterback. I mean, Iowa, they've probably upgraded with Mark Gronowski. So it's like, yeah, that sounds nice on the surface, but like we can only wait for time to tell if that's really going to be something here. But yeah, I just had to pick your brain over that. So just from a broad overview from last year, and we're going to get into, where Michigan State can improve. It's not all sunshine and rainbows over here on Locked On Spartans. But let's just start with the ray of sunshine, Parker. Like, was there a stat that you did like last year from Michigan State that you think can maybe even continue into this year in a momentum sort of way?
Yeah, I'll give you one on both sides of the ball. For defense, the early downs EPA on defense was very good. Again, opponent adjusting that, accounting for who they're playing, kind of a top 30 unit on those first and second downs, which is really encouraging, right? Saying like, hey, when the field is open, we're able to match up, run our scheme, and truly frustrate opposing defenses. That was really great. And so I think that, again, bodes well. You think about kind of the Bobby Bowden ladder of success of getting crushed, crushing losses, winning close, and then winning big. Michigan State is kind of in there of like, hey, you can map that onto what a team's doing of saying, hey, we're good at one thing. Hey, we're good at multiple things. Hey, we're good at everything. And that's where they're trying to move. And so that defense was good. The run unit was really good. Pass defense needs some help. That's correlated to the third and fourth down success kind of fell off on defense as well. But in the early downs, they were able to match and figure out patterns and throw some looks that were interesting. On the defensive side of the ball, the offensive side of the ball, their quality possession rate was very high. They were 28th in the nation at ECHL rate. And ECHL is just a stat to reflect how often you generate a quality drive. And that's despite them having the 124th starting field position in FBS last year. So they were starting at a disadvantage. They were creating a lot of quality chances. So the hope is maybe you get some positive regression on the field position, and then you're a little further down the field as you create those quality possessions, and those can translate more into points. But some signs of optimism on both sides of the ball. Defense with the rushing and the early downs, and then the offense with that quality possession rate.
I didn't even know there were that many teams in football, 124. And
it's 136 now, and I know that because it's 4 columns, easily divisible, so it makes my graphs a lot easier, right?
Excellent. I was wondering why they look so great. That's perfect. So, before I ask the next question here, I just do need to hit the brakes, and this isn't for me, of course. This is for the listeners. I 100% know what this means, but some people get very confused, and their brain just turns into mashed potatoes when they see the word ECHL on the stats that you tweet out. Again, not me, Parker. I know what it is, but you can explain it better than I can. So what on earth are you talking about when you say ECHL?
Yeah, so ECHL is like a counter to time of possession. It's highly inspired by the Corsic or Fin. Oh my gosh, what's it called?
I don't know.
What's his other? Someone in the replies is going to mention this. Starts with an F, and I can't think about it. The stat in hockey, but Corsi is one of them. And it's basically like a measure of shots. And so, who controlled the game through shots, through pressure on the zone. And so it's kind of an analogous there. There's a couple games I could get back to. I think it was Wisconsin, Wake Forest in a bowl game in, 2018 or something, was like Purdue had a ton of time, or Wake Forest had a ton of time of possession. But then they just kept turning the ball over and over and over again. And so Wisconsin scored a ton. And so the time of possession was really out of line with what you'd expect. This is a way to kind of measure. It's not so much how long you hold the ball. It's what you do with the ball. And so it's how many times are you getting into that threatening zone, putting pressure on the defense. And it can be a rate. It can also be a ratio to kind of give you game control as well. And then the name ECHL is inspired by the Navy fullback, Kyle ECHL, who was a part of the team who in 2004, I believe, in the Emerald Bowl had the longest drive in FBS history, which was like 16 minutes or something insane there. So a fun little name for a stat that just kind of says, hey, time of possession is really noisy and doesn't actually help us understand what the teams are doing. This helps us understand a little bit better.
Excellent. Love that. And I love the explanation of where the name came from, because I thought it was just some long, elaborate acronym. But hey, there's an actual just person's name attached to it. That's awesome. Yeah. Now, look, it hasn't been like great here. We're not blind to that right now. And certainly I think that some numbers will agree with that. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball here. What stat on offense just quite simply has to be better for Michigan State to survive, or dare I say even thrive in the Big Ten coming up this season?
Yeah, so I mentioned the field position. Like, obviously, that needs to get better. The EPA per dropback, like expected points added per dropback, was not great, in the 90s. you expect that to improve with Chiles. I think the one kind of bellwether for like, hey, is Jonathan Smith turning the corner here is the points per ECHL. So the points per quality possession. When you do get a quality possession, what do? Michigan State last year, 132nd, averaging 2.2 points per quality possession last year. That's not going to get it done. That's less than a field goal. Like, that's not okay. And so that, I think, one, there, if field position improves, then there's less fatigue. There's less, hey, we've run all of our plays and we don't have any more looks as we get down here. As well, there's more opportunities for explosives when the field shortens. You can create matchups there as well. But I think that's reflected in net points per drive, just not even, taking the advance out of it. Michigan State was 114th in points per drive last year on offense. And so you got to score. You got to translate your positive opportunities into points. Part of that is going to be Chiles' development. Part of that's going to be the field position improving a little bit. Part of that is talent, being able to find those matchups, whether it's that tight end or the wide receivers, to get open in the short zone there on that side of the field. But that's the one that, if they're still struggling in, we get to October and we're like, man, this Michigan State team doesn't look much better. It's probably because they're just not translating to points like they, the same thing they were doing last year.
Got to tighten up those red zone turnovers, which I feel like there was roughly 500 of last year in the first month of the season alone. Like, it was an exciting start to the year last year, for better or for worse, more times than not. But how about the defensive side of the ball? What has to get better there for the Michigan State Spartans?
Defensive side, I did mention that third and fourth down success rate. They're 115th in the nation. They're just, again, short yardage, just getting pushed around a little bit. You got to get physical. You got to get beefier there. You got to know what's coming. And some of that pressure, like that's kind of a bad indicator for me. When your early downs is really good and your late downs is really bad, it's like, oh man, you're getting pushed around in a very specific scenario here because you're getting these favorable looks. Like, you can't give up 3rd and 8 first downs. You can't do it. You got to find a way to get sacks. You got to get pass breakups and really kind of create havoc on those late downs. That's not something that Michigan State was doing last year. That's something I want to see Rossi's unit really, really take a step forward in this year.
And also another graphic that you had out, and this is like, the telltale sign that, okay, football is really around the corner. It was the preseason team average win totals. Now, this must have been an error because you have Michigan State at 5.7, where like the number should be like in the 9s or something, right? But on a real note, how do you get that number? And like, how, like, is it going to be another 5-1 season, Parker? Like, just let us down gently now.
Probably not. It's probably not going to be a 5-1 season. I should have just released a version that had everyone at 12-0.
You should have.
To get those sweet Twitter likes. But yes. I think when we're looking at this, what we want to be thinking about is really the distribution of wins. And so what I did here is I took my normal year over year predictions and just said, hey, this is how I normally predict it. I talk about some returning production. I talk about your 4-year average and kind of the way things have been going. And this year I added one, I regressed that to the market. So I want to be in line with the market and kind of understand, like, hey, if a ton of people have stakes in the game, think that a team's going to be like this is where we want them to be generally. And then I also added one more layer this year just because we have EA College Football 26 is a very small component, but I took the roster rankings from that because I think that's a good signal of, what quality is on your roster and how that talent goes in. Obviously probably doesn't help your, coaching eval there necessarily, but I do think it does help you understand where these teams are relative to relative to the just talent on the field there. So I took that in and I created a simulation of the season. So I didn't do any updating. It's like if I expect you to beat a team by 7 and you beat them by 10, I'm going to upgrade your power rating by 0.87 points or whatever the formula I have is there. I didn't do any of that. I just said this is the true value of the team. Let's simulate the entire season. And so I got a win probability for every game, and then I did that 10,000 times and just took the mean of it. And so sometimes when you do a lot of sims, you just get your priors back. But I think Michigan State, their average was 5.7. I do have them at a pretty decent clip at making a bowl. Obviously, you can't win 0.7 games, but you go to the schedule and you look at the gimmies, more or less, and the 3 kind of gimmies on their schedule, win probability of 70 or better preseason, were Maryland, Western Michigan, and Youngstown State. All 3 of those were 70 or better. A really good shot against Boston College there at 60%. And then UCLA and Minnesota both favored in slightly. Everything else they're not favored in, but they're no less than a 30% favorite in any game. So it's very small margins. And so when you see 5.7, that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, I'm predicting them to have fewer than 6 wins and not make a bowl. it means, hey, in expectation, they have a lot of close games this year. They're just going to have a lot of close games, and that's going to be stressful. So one, sorry for your blood pressure on that, but I do think that's an encouraging sign that they are going to be competitive this season, that they're not going to get blown out in a lot of these games, and they're going to have a legitimate shot in a lot of these.
Guys, we've all been there, whether it's a sporting event, a concert, whatever it is, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, for example. And, well, now that spot for that show that you've been dying to see, it just evaporated right before your eyes. And, oh, my God, the ticket nightmare continues. But, guys, this is where Gametime comes in. Just erasing all that stress, all that hullabaloo around getting tickets for whatever event that you want. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Guys, like, for example, next Tuesday, I will be at Rufus du Sol over at Pine Knob. And, yeah, I didn't want to deal with all the riffraff of trying to get tickets when they first went on sale. No, I actually just got some the other day, thanks to Gametime. I know he said that you can save last minute on ticket deals, but I actually wanted to plan for this one, and I was still able to save money with their great flash deals that they will have leading up to any event that you guys have. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, guys, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. It's last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Fascinating. I love the explanation there, very detailed, and I can actually follow along, which, hey, for me is very hard sometimes, especially when numbers are thrown in the mix. But you got time just for just a few more like broad Big Ten-ish questions, because I gotta know what Big Ten team is just everyone a little too high on this year. No shortage of candidates, of course. Ohio State, even though they lose a lot. Penn State, even though they can't win the big one. Everyone seems to love Illinois for good reason, but there's some questions about, okay, well, how quality is their roster? Or are you going to go off the board here? Is there another team out there that you think people are just a little too high on right now?
Yeah, I think Illinois is getting a little bit of the grafting of Indiana last year and saying, hey, there's going to be one random team that comes out. And only from a probabilistic sense. I think it's either them or Nebraska as kind of the fourth Big Ten team that really does break out there. And so for everyone to be so certain on Illinois, I mean, I think they're solid. They've got some NFL guys on the defensive line, on the offensive line. Yep. Luke Altmaier is what he is there, but I think the train's getting a little high on them. Michigan, I see a lot of wide range of opinions. You go from complete certainty that Bryce Underwood's going to be the next, God's gift to football to, hey, he's going to be a bust and he's out of shape. Like, I don't see a lot of nuanced analysis there. I like that I have them 8.4. I feel like that's a good mean outcome that kind of accounts for possibilities of Underwood blowing up either direction there. Sure. I think of the top three, Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon, all three of those have 10 plus wins, just the way the schedule breaks. Like they're going to be favored in 11 games. They should win 10 to 11 games and make the playoff. I do think Oregon is the weakest out of those three by a substantial amount.
Okay, fascinating, because, yeah, there's so much turnover. I mean, a new quarterback. I mean, everyone knows the reasons why. And the last time we all saw them, didn't go too hot on television either. I know that goes far away from anything analytical, but my goodness gracious, that's just hard to scrub from my memory right there. Parker, before we let you go, enjoy the rest of your off season. This is for me as much as it is like the fans right now. When we talk about football, when we preview games, when we look back at games, you take this any way you want. What stat do you think football fans need to pay more attention to? What's your most underrated stat that's usually a pretty good storyteller of a season?
Underrated stat is a great question. I do like Echo, although I feel like it's really good at descriptive, kind of understanding what a team does as opposed to what a team will be. When I'm breaking it down, I think we're entirely underrating kind of the selection bias. So for instance, and not to put you on the spot, you cited yards per carry, right? Yep. And that's great. That is what happened on the field. What that doesn't account for is Michigan State's passing game was limited, so they were running in passing situations sometimes because they were kind of selecting away from those pass plays, worried about big turnovers and kind of that, negative outcomes there. And so I think that's where the selection comes in. And so I like to look at EPA per rush, EPA per dropback, and then rush rate over expected. Those three together can tell you a ton about what a team's trying to do and how good they are at it. And I think that kind of intent, we're really good at execution in the analytics world and basically, fans hey, they can run the ball well. But in terms of intent, what are they trying to do and how are they getting there? I think that we're underrating kind of how matchups force teams to behave differently. And so that's one I like to keep in mind there, is that rush rate over expected, because it's a measure of style, but it helps us explain efficiency really, really well.
And is there one that you wish you could just scrub from discourse when it comes to college football? Like just a stat that has to be thrown completely out? Is it yards per carry, actually? Not to throw a candidate out there, but is that the one, you think?
I mean, I like yards per carry because, again, like football is a game of yards, right? And we can translate them into expected points and everything. Time of possession is one I really don't like.
Okay.
I think time of possession is entirely overvalued. I think coaches are, even in the charitable interpretation of style, like coaches are leaving efficiency and explosiveness on the table to maximize possession, and that just doesn't seem like it's very smart. It also could mean a whole lot of things. Like you could win time of possession by driving 99 yards every time and then turning around and punting the ball out of your back to your own end zone. Like sure. It's just kind of silly. So that one's one I don't like. I also caution, fans who are analytically curious to be wary of stats that kind of sound like, hey, this team on Thursday nights when they're wearing green and facing north,
my stats, my kind of stats
in the nation. And you're like, there might be edges in that, but also like maybe we just want to be a little bit careful about, okay, yeah, that was one game of a sample size. And so I think the best thing to do statistics wise is to just treat everything like it's a lie until you can prove differently. I think that's a really healthy attitude to kind of help you use statistics to peel back layers of understanding in football.
So UCLA travels to East Lansing this year. The game's at noon. That's obviously 9 a.m. for UCLA's body clock. And I went back last year and I tabulated all the West Coast teams that played in the East Coast and Big Ten. And I think it was a combined 1-1. You're telling me it's not like real hard?
Yeah, there's a 50% chance that's going to work. See? But I think kind of not to quote the Chicago school too much here, but like you shouldn't have evidence without theory, and you shouldn't have theory without evidence. So like, again, a 1-2 game sample size doesn't really help. But hey, strong evidence, like body clock matters. I think that could be kind of weird for these teams. They're obviously going to get better at it as they do it more over the years. So the effect is probably going to wane. But there's something to say like, hey, if I have all this other evidence that says I think Michigan State has an edge in this game, and I can say, hey, there's this body clock effect that I might not have been able to measure, but I know theoretically matters. You can incorporate that, absolutely. But you want to be wary of saying, posting the TikTok video and saying, hey, here's my lock of the year because teams are 1-1. And right. Like that's nonsense. I don't know how those guys get views. Like we all know it's nonsense.
I love it.
But
it's great. It's great. Parker, thank you so much for your time, your insight. I held you hostage way longer than I intended to with all these questions, but thanks a lot for sticking along. Anything that you want to plug or shout out before we let you go and enjoy your off season?
Yeah, man, just Stats War on Twitter is the best place to find, what I'm doing and where I'm posting stuff and talking about it. And that's where I'll, tweet out stuff like this so people can hear where I'm chatting about football.
Excellent. Well, gang, hey, you know what? It's Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white every single day right here in the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks a lot for watching, for listening, and thanks again, Parker, for all your time. Until next time, guys, we will be back. This is Locked On Spartans. We do this 5 days a week. But yeah, until then, take care of yourselves. Love you all. Go green.